call this meeting back into order. It is now 9 o'clock, perhaps a few minutes. About 9 o'clock. Ms. Bennell, is everything all right?
Yes, just giving me her name.
Hattie Bennell.
Call me Donna again.
I called you Donna?
Call me Donna.
She's not Donna.
Thank God.
Who is Donna?
I'm sorry, that's what I remember.
Okay. Probably worse
I
than
need to talk to you afterwards.
All right. We're now back in session, in open session, for the matter of the hearing so advertised and the matter on the agenda. The board has had an opportunity at the vendor's request to discuss matters with him. No action was taken, and now we're here for the hearing. Mr. Gus, if you would present any documentation. We did present earlier the 144 pages of letters and backup that Mr. Rottenberg did acknowledge he has received. We did discuss earlier how we had a hearing on Friday, January 28th, and now, Mr. Gus, it's your call.
All right. As we discussed, the first item that I'd like to discuss are the 15 bids, which were previously 15 routes that were previously bid, that were part of our previous discussion. Mr. Rottenberg sat in my office and signed the document that I'm about to distribute to the board members, in which he agreed to pay any difference in price for those particular runs in the case that they exceeded the $884 per annum.
No. You said it wrong.
Let me finish and then you can correct me, because I don't think I said it wrong. It's
Okay.
prorated. Okay.
Well, why don't we just read it? It says, I, Aaron Rottenberg, agree to pay any difference between the price I was charging and any new higher route cost for the 15 routes that are being pulled away from my Lakewood Bus Company's contractual transportation commitment with the Lakewood Board of Ed, new board bid 11-1113. I understand that this obligation will be paid in the form of deductions from the remaining payments due to me from the board for the routes I continue to do as originally contracted. Added by Mr. Rottenberg, these runs cannot exceed the legal limit of $884 per student per year. The amount to be bid must be compared to this limit based on the prorated cost calculated on the remaining days in the current school year. What does that mean in English?
What that means is, without that language, Mr. Rottenberg feared that he might be assessed a higher amount than the actual remaining months that were left in the contract. So that language is put in there specifically to protect him from bearing the cost of a full 10 months worth of transportation as opposed to the remaining 4.5 months.
Do you disagree with that?
I'd like to add a little to it, which
All right,
maybe
but
just like
in common English, because
common English, okay. The state, I believe it's the state, allows $884 per child per year. Okay, that means if there's, let's say, 10 children only on the bus, the maximum you can bid for that bus for the year is $884 times 10.
Right.
If there's 40 kids on the bus, you can bid much higher. So what that said is that if this run only has 20 children, the amount of the run is $884 times 20, prorated for, let's say, it's going to be March, April, May, June, for argument's sake, let's say each month has the same amount of days of school, let's say. It'll be 4 months times 18 days, would be 36, 72 days. So I have to pay, the most someone could bid is $884 for that amount of days.
Through the June.
And that's a leak that they can't bid higher than that anyways. I just put that into.
Yes, it's a good point.
he's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Conklin, can I just ask you one question?
Yes.
The routes on the 9 o'clock that we took away, the 8 routes on the 9 o'clock, do you have handy how many children are on those buses?
I don't have the load counts. Hold on, I might, yes, I have the bids here.
And while they look, Ms. Bennell, how many do you think?
About average of 30.
Average about 30 per bus. Does that sound right to you, Mr. Romberg?
I don't know, I can't answer. I don't remember. But
Okay, then you don't
an
know.
average run is about 25, 30 kids, some are more, but a lot of small, the newer schools are that amount.
Okay.
My question is, were those 8 a little bit less?
I can read the routes with the load counts if that's what
Okay.
you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay. Route ATG S1, load count of 26. Route ATG S1P, load count of 9. Route MCH.
Is that an early run? Are you reading the early runs, doesn't really matter?
I'm reading all the runs.
Okay, but I think the board wants to know the 9 o'clock runs, because the early runs, no matter how much they are, let me explain to the board, the million runs, even if there's 40 kids on them, they go for $60, because everybody wants them. So that's not an issue.
All right, so I will read the routes that are scheduled for
The
9
9
o'clock.
o'clock runs is
Okay.
what they think would be more relevant.
ATG S1 has 26. ATG S1P, that also has 9.
What school is that, man? Oh, is that an early run?
Sarasapova Elementary.
The next route is a 740. The next route is a 740. Next route is a 740. 740, 740, 740. 740, 740, 740. Then we have route BYB P1, 24 kids. Route BYB P2, 36 children. BDG S2, 24 children. BDG S2P, 24 children. BDG S5, 26 children. BDG S5P, 22 children. YKT A4, 28 children. YKTA 4P, 36 children. YNO4, 28 children. YNO4P, 15 children. AYHS1, 19, correction, that's an 830. Are we counting an 830 or
I
no?
think that's the one that gave out to the other schools. Is that the high school that goes high school?
Sarah,
Yeah, that doesn't, that you someone else.
Okay. And BM9, 31 children.
These are the ones that we're taking away, right?
Yes. These are all out to bid, and we have received bids on 7 of the 15.
Only on the 730s.
No, my question, these, you already listed 13. These are obviously counting the new 15 that you put out, right?
No, they're not.
No. Some of them are AM, PM that go together, and that's the reason why they were read that way, but they have different load counts. That's the reason why I mentioned it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's the point of the question?
The point of the question is that I'd like to try to figure out why these routes weren't bid. I was told that the reason is because they weren't full buses and they were below average, and that's why they weren't bid. And that if we would choose routes that were fuller, then they would be bid. But it seems like they're all within the average of 25 to 30. So do we have any reason why the other companies would not have bid on these routes?
I think because of the late work. That's
No, the 9 o'clocks aren't Lakewood. The 7 o'clocks are Lakewood. The 9 o'clocks are all elementary. The 7 o'clock, the mini runs are all in the SIFTs, boys' high schools that go in 7:40 and they get out 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. So no Murphy, SDA, these companies don't want it. They don't want to keep the yards open. The only ones that do it here are me and Jay. Okay, and the 9 o'clock runs, I believe no one has 9 o'clock buses available. It's a very hard thing to do. No one has 9 o'clock buses available.
Okay.
That's my opinion,
But we do have 9 o'clock runs on the second 15 bid that there seems to be a lot of interest in, so I don't know if that's an accurate statement.
My question is that would you be able to figure out what the reason would be why the second 15 would have more interest than the first?
It's my understanding that the second 15, there's more interest because of the route loads are higher, they're more condensed in the geography where they're going, and they can be matched up to other work for these vendors so that they can maximize the utilization of their fleet. They just fit better. And I credit Patty for helping with that, because on the first 15, Aaron picked those for us, Mr. Rottenberg. On the second 15, I asked Patty to work with me, and she came up with 15 routes that there was an extreme interest in, because they were very viable for matching up with other work.
But of course, were those based on problems? Or
Yes, we had complaints, yes, absolutely. That was my first
there was a
caveat.
rational basis
Yes.
to this?
Yes, but unfortunately, we have a lot of routes with complaints. So what we did was on the first batch, we gave Mr. Rottenberg the latitude to choose them. On the second group, we chose the routes with the complaints that also were marketable.
Now what's going to happen to the other 8 routes that weren't picked up from the first batch?
We are going to request that Mr. Rottenberg continue to do them.
Are you continuing to do those 8?
I can't answer the second. Let's see what happens. Let me see what happens.
Okay.
I'm continuing doing till March 1st. Nothing happens until March 1st.
All right,
that's for sure.
well, moving on then with the plan that I'm going to ask the board, I would ask the board that at our March 24th meeting, we would,
February 20th.
I'm sorry, February 24th,
Right.
that we approve the 7 routes, which, Patty, they do meet the letter on the 884 being under that threshold. And
They do?
yes.
Yes.
And the remaining 8 would stay assigned to, obviously we didn't get any bids, and rather than rebid them and go through the same process, we're just going to ask Mr. Rottenberg.
Well, it's not a question of ask, he's contractually bound to do
Yes,
that, isn't
yes he is.
You don't feel you're contractually bound to do that?
I'm not sure. Not,
I feel like I'm in Disneyland here.
okay. Right.
I think the board has gone for a ride long enough. What I don't understand is obviously there's information that I'm not aware of, and I don't have to be. But, and I want to be fair, but the 15 first routes, were they selected, is the right word routes?
Yes,
Were the first 15 routes selected by us or Mr. Rottenberg?
Mr. Rottenberg.
Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Good. Out of the first 15 routes, you went out to bid, Mr. Rottenberg agreed. Is that right?
Yes.
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 Good. We have agreement on 2 issues. Building on that, 8 were picked up?
7 were picked up.
Sorry, 7 were picked up. Do you understand that to be true?
No, I'm not sure. I think 8 were picked up. That high school was the 8
7.
or 7.
7.
So there's
Okay.
6 and 1?
Well,
I'm not
seven-
sure.
seven
I don't
of
know.
the routes-
I'm not. I
Well,
was there by
let-
the opening of the bids. I don't
Wait a
know.
minute, let's be sure. Ms. Bennell,
7 rounds.
7 rounds were picked
Okay.
up
Until board approval.
until board approval, which is at February 24th. February 24th is the Transportation Department recommending that those 7 routes be delivered by whatever bus company picked them up.
Yes.
Okay. The other 8, Mr. Rottenberg has a contract for those other 8. Does he not? Are we not?
Yes.
Okay, these contracts we have? here?
Yes.
Yes.
Student transportation contracts.
Yes.
Yes.
So why would that be a debate if he has to continue with those 7?
We're not debating.
Why would
I'm
you?
not an attorney, but,
Okay.
whatever.
Well, you did tell, okay.
Okay.
So, so unless there's something I'm not understanding, those 7 routes you are obligated to do. What is those 8 routes? Do you have information you'd like to present to the board? Because I really feel we're just going back and forth. Certain board members like to ask questions which are very important, but we're here for a hearing. So can we have the information you wish to present? The list, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, they received that.
Okay.
Did anyone not receive the complaint list?
The board has received a list of complaints, which is 271 long. It started, Mr. Rottenberg, can you please give this to Mr. Rottenberg? He did
I
get.
have it.
Okay, you have it. Okay. Can we ask for silence or participation?
Can I just finish my thought?
No, we're at a hearing.
I understand.
271.
Through the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask to allow Gus to make his presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Gus, are you insinuating that Mr. Rottenberg deliberately chose routes that he knew would not be picked up?
I don't
That
want
would
to
be insinuating?
Would you suggest that that's a possibility?
I don't want to read, I would ask, with all due respect, Mr. Seidler, that whatever his intentions were, he did pick them. And the fact of the matter remains that there was no interest in,
I'll tell you why I picked them if you want to hear.
Tell us why you picked them.
Those were the runs that bid very close to thresholds. Even if someone picked them up, I wouldn't be liable to pay anything out of pocket. Because let's say it was $8.84 per kid, that's what they were being paid for, and no one could bid higher than that, and that would be, I wouldn't have to pay anything out of pocket. Even if it was 25 or 35 kids, it was bid high as the threshold.
So it was an economic reason, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so now we have that. So now, are you going to make your presentation?
Yes.
Which is why we're at a hearing?
yes. In line with the 271 log complaints, and I would also let the board know that in many of those complaints, the caller or the writer of the complaint prefaced their remarks or their complaint by saying they were speaking on behalf of all the mothers at a bus stop, several mothers at a bus stop. So there could have been multiple complaints, or many more complaints on that list, but for the sake of brevity and convenience, we condensed it to one mother speaking on behalf of many mothers.
Did we hear from any schools? Because there are a lot of mothers here in Lakewood.
Yes, we heard from many schools, and they're listed on there either as the rabbi's call or staff call or a particular secretary calling in the...
Did we get any complaints, and I don't know this to be true or not, does NEGWA do any public school routes?
Yes,
Did we get any complaints on this list from public school routes?
yes, we did.
Can you direct us to where that would be?
Well, one of the most recent ones would be the one that occurred on the late run. I'll give you the line item.
It's on February 7th, February 8th.
Well, actually, I would refer to line number 255 on the 15th. That was the most recent that I can recall right now.
And 255 on line,
Clifton Avenue.
just Clifton Avenue late, or can you explain what 255 is, Gus?
Each one of these complaints is numbered to the far left.
Tell us what 255 is.
That's the 255th complaint.
And it's dated February 15th. It says Clifton Avenue late runs. The complaint was made by staff.
Yes.
The bus company is NEGWA. What you wrote here is while Mr. Rottenberg was on the phone with me going over complaints for the day, a complaint came in from the Clifton Avenue school. Late buses 1 and 2 were 25 minutes late for pickup. Mr. Rottenberg said he would see what happened. He called me back and said the 2 drivers had parked their buses and gone home without completing their late runs. Sub buses were sent, but the children arrived home 45 minutes late. Phone. And then Mr. Rottenberg claimed that Margarita, who normally reminds the driver to do their late runs without sick, no one reminded them, so the drivers thought they did not have a late run that day. I told Mr. Rottenberg to tell his drivers they must do assigned work. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Gus?
Yes.
Chair. Have you received any complaints from Linden Avenue preschool, the 3-4-year-olds?
I believe so.
Line 243.
Could you tell us about those complaints?
Well, now we're being told by
243, that's correct.
243.
What type of complaints did you get from Linden Avenue?
If we could look at 243, because the vendor has a right to 243, and if I may just read what it says, which he has a copy of this, prior to this evening, February 10th, Linden preschool staff made a complaint from the Linden Avenue preschool. 14 passenger bus sent, bid requires 24 passenger bus, 15 pupils on run, and the last child was not picked up. Verified by Kendra in the NEGWA office. Assure this would not happen again. Does that sound right?
I remember hearing about it, yes.
Is there a Kendra who works for you?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Is this all the more recent, since your tenure here, not that you have tenure, these are your entries?
From the February 1st was my first day of work.
Okay. So we have this list, which the vendor was sent other than the most recent from today. Do you have any other information, factual information? I know you brought Ms. Bonnell here for a reason. Is there any factual information?
The Clifton Avenue, was that the first time, or is that a repeat?
Line 213 and 228.
Thank you.
Ms. Bonnell is here because if there were any questions about the service level of the NEGWA bus company prior to my starting on February 1st, obviously I could not speak to that. Ms. Bonnell graciously, don't forget she starts her day very, very early, about 6 in the morning, and she's agreed to be here tonight to
Ms.
help.
Benel, did you put together the listing until Gus came on board?
I did.
And the way you did it is you entered the date, the time, the source of the complaint, and what was done, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Romberg, do you have any questions as to the method in which this list is put together?
No.
Do you have anything you would like to present to rebut, refute, challenge, modify, amend what's on this list?
No.
Were you given an opportunity to review this list other than the entries for today?
Yes.
Okay. So is there any other, before you go to the law, which it looks like you're winding up to do, is there any other factual information? Were there any incidents of this week, sir?
Oh, there were many incidents this week.
Anything not on this list?
Everything I believe is on this list of what occurred that I was aware of. There are complaints that people make to other people involved with the Board of Education, and sometimes they don't come my way. I found that out. But any complaints that went to my desk, Patty knows that I have, since I started here on February 1st, I have requested that all of the secretaries and Patty send all complaints, not just NECBA, but all complaints to me as well. The other thing that did come up was that, I guess it was 2 or 3 days ago, right after the bid opening for the second 15 bids, Mr. Rottenberg did come into my office, highly agitated and very upset, and wanted to know why we went out for 15 more bids. I informed him that I had left him a voicemail message following an extraordinarily bad day, telling him that the board had given me that parameter, and that I realized that things were not getting better, and that the second 15 might help him recoup his resources to a point where he could deliver the level of service that needed to be delivered. And he said, you bid him out now they're your problem, and he threatened not to fulfill his contractual obligation to continue doing those runs until he was told by the board not to.
But in fact, he has continued?
Yes, he has.
Is there any other factual information we need to know, the board needs to know at this time?
I think,
That's a pretty good summary.
yes.
Okay. Mr. Romberg, would you like to present anything?
No, I would not.
Okay. Mr. Gus, what would you suggest as the, with Ms. Benel, I'm sure you two have discussed this, have you not?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And
At this time, we, based on the Title 18A language, which mirrors the Administrative Code 6 language, which gives the board certain parameters to disqualify a bidder. And if I could just read, if the board finds that it has had prior negative experience, shall for a reasonably defined period, not to exceed 3 years, disqualify a bidder, and it must be made by resolution. And that is, again, in 18A and in Administrative Code 6. And also in the bid packages that go out to, on all of our transportation contracts, is a forfeiture clause. And that clause specifically states, if the contractor fails to perform satisfactorily or fails to furnish safe and adequate personnel and equipment, or otherwise fails to comply with the terms of the contract, the Lakewood Township Board of Education may cancel the contract after a public hearing and upon 60 days written notice of procure service elsewhere. The Lakewood Township Board of Education, in its sole discretion, may call for the forfeiture of the performance bond. The contractor shall be liable for any incremental costs, including reasonable attorney fees and administrative fees, to prepare new bid specifications. The school district may incur to operate its transportation program for the remainder of the school year following the cancellation of the contract and calling for the forfeiture of the performance bond. At this time, what I would ask the Board of Education to consider for their approval would be that, again, as previously stated, we approve the 7 bids that were placed for the first 15 routes.
so that would be done at the February 24th meeting?
That's correct. And we also have a bid opening on the 24th for the remaining 15. I would ask the board that
For
provide
the remaining or the additional 15?
the additional 15. I would ask the board, providing those come in and they meet muster as far as meeting code, that we award those 15. And while we give Mr. Rottenberg every opportunity during his continued service to the board, we also begin the statutory requirements of presenting or making ourselves available for a hearing with the Executive County Superintendent to review the problems that this Board of Education has had with NEGBA bus service, and to see if the Executive County Superintendent concurs that it would be in the best interest of the students and the Board of Education to remove NEGBA bus service from continuing to do our bus routes and the remaining routes that they have.
Do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you wait till after you pull the routes and see if it gets better before you start that procedure?
There is also a procedure in which we will be pursuing the performance bond, and we also, the entire procedure for having the hearing. As you know, the county superintendent, executive county superintendent has been, the Ocean County one, has been temporarily replaced by a gentleman who is also serving as Atlantic County's executive county superintendent. His time is very limited, so we have to give him enough lead time that this type of hearing could take place. In the meantime, we are certainly going to be reviewing very closely how you do, what you do, and it would be to your advantage to have a very good level of service between now and that hearing. I think I would imagine that the Board of Education would be impressed to see you have a very good operation between now and that period of time, and perhaps, and I don't want to speak for the board, they may consider what they're doing in a different light. But in the meantime, the prudent thing for me to recommend to the board is to begin these series of actions. They are time-consuming, they are very involved, and if the ultimate outcome is going to be that your service continues to perform as it has, then we are doing the right thing for the children by pursuing this particular action.
Mr. Romberg, any comment?
No.
Any discussion by the board?
Yeah. I have two questions. Mr. Gus,
Yes.
let's say we start this process with the county superintendent, and it takes, let's say, 3 months to get a hearing, and during those 3 months, the service, we take these routes and the service improves. Do we have to go through with it, or we are allowed to say, okay, it improved and we can pull back?
It's my understanding that since we're requesting the hearing, we would have the ability to cancel the hearing if that was the pleasure of the board.
Okay, thank you. That's one question. The other question was, this is a legal question. The paper that Mr. Rottenberg signed, does it delineate, if that's the right way to say that word, the specific 15 routes? The reason why I'm asking is because we're asking him to take back those 8 that were not bid on, which means that in essence, we're only really taking away 22 in total. Should 7 routes on the second bid not get picked up, it would only be 15 in total, and he would still be liable because it doesn't say which 15. We can pick any 15, and should the total end up only being 15, there's no reason to even talk about taking another 15 because we're only taking 15 in the first place.
I think I understand your question, and what I would like to do is just point out that we are going to pursue the bond, the performance bond. The original purpose of this letter was so that we would not go in that direction. And I feel at this time the situation has not improved enough, and perhaps could be argued that has degraded enough that we would want to consider the steps of going after the performance bond in order to protect the interest of the Lakewood Board of Education.
That's fine. That wasn't the question. My question was that we're discussing taking away a total of 30. In essence, we're only really discussing taking away 22.
I think Mr. Seidler's saying, do you recommend we find another 8 routes to take away as well to compensate for the 8 that weren't picked up from the original 15?
Or
Because
is
you
that-
came up with the original 15 because you had a formula because of the way that his routes were not being taken care of the way they should be.
No, the
Then-
first 15 were.
The first
selected
15 were,
by Ms.
but at the recommendation of Gus, that 15 would be the right amount at the time to maybe help his performance improve. So being that only 7 of those were picked up and you recommended 15, are you also recommending to find another 8 routes to compensate for the 8 that were not picked up? So in essence, it's another additional 15 plus 8 from the original 15 that weren't picked up.
Basically, right now, we're only taking away 22, not 30. And we don't even know if we're taking away 22. We may only be taking away less if not all those are picked up.
I would ask the board, again, I want to give Mr. Rottenberg an opportunity during this interim, while we're going towards the county hearing, to have a legitimate attempt to improve his service. And if we pulled the additional 8 routes on top of the 7, in other words, we picked 8 more routes. I think right now, if we could just do this, we're going to wind up with a, as you said, 22 routes that are going to be pulled from his service.
Right.
I'm hopeful that that's going to alleviate enough of his workload, that between some drivers that are going to be freed up and some equipment that's going to be freed up, we may maximize his opportunities to improve, and again, give him the highest possibility of preempting the hearing with the county executive county superintendent, because we can come to the table here and say that there's been sufficient improvement. That if that does not happen, and we have the county superintendent hearing in 3 months scheduled, and by the time that 3 months time has lapsed, the list that is now at 271, and if the trend continues, maybe double that number, obviously we are going to have a different view of this thing.
Through the chair.
I'm just hopeful that doesn't occur. I'm hopeful that we can see the list that I've accumulated so far, and Ms. Bennell had accumulated prior to my arrival. I'm hopeful that that list will now be abated, and we can go ahead and start concentrating on other things besides handling complaints.
Through the chair, I have a question for Gus.
So just to clear, the recommendation for tonight is to take an additional 7 routes, not 15.
No, we're going to make that recommendation at the 24th meeting. I'm just laying out a plan as we move forward.
What I understand is that 7 bids which were picked up will be on the February 24th agenda, regardless of your vote this evening. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What I understand is that 15 routes will be on your agenda for February 24th, regardless of your vote tonight. Is that correct?
I don't know if they'll be ready for the meeting of the 24th. They probably will be ready for the next board meeting.
Okay. What your recommendation is the county that they should vote on either yes or no this evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what your recommendation is they should vote on this evening is the bond, whether they vote yes or no is up to them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So the 2 issues they have to vote on this evening are 1, to pursue the county hearing, and 2, to pursue the bond. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
Why are you pursuing the bond if you have no monetary loss as of yet? Or even future and I'm willing to pay for it?
Well, are you going to sign another letter for the next group of routes?
Well, just say you'll pursue the bond if you have a loss. I'm not answering yes, no, false. I don't know which routes you pulled, but you won't pursue the bond if you don't have a loss.
If we don't have a loss, we, the Board of Ed, which if we do not have a loss, we will not pursue the bond. We will have to check the bond language. Do we have to put them on notice? If there's no procedural notice requirement, then Gus is suggesting that would be appropriate.
It seems like a
But
reasonable...
typically, like with insurance claims, there are notice requirements. So if we could find out if there's a notice requirement tomorrow, I'll ask the transportation, you don't have to get into too many particulars. If there is a notice requirement, that would be to our detriment. If there isn't a notice requirement, if that is the pleasure, and Gus is recommending that, which he is. So let us go through this. If there's any more questions now?
Yes, I have a question. It's a little bit related to this. If the board decides to withdraw the request for the county hearing in, say, a month or 2, based upon the improvement, hopefully, of the Lakewood Bus Company, who is responsible in the interim to pay for the administrative costs that were incurred as far as maybe court fees or your fees, or your hourly, whatever, whatever
the
costs
board
that were
pays for
incurred.
it. Unless there's another agreement in America, win, lose, or draw, you pay for your lawyer, you pay for the cost of your lawyer, except for civil rights like special education, where if you prevail, the other side pays your attorney fees. I know no provision which would say, you spend money on pursuing this, you decide to stop, and the other guy has to pay for it, unless he agrees to that in writing. But again, that's my opinion. That's the facts, in my opinion. So, the question now becomes, Mr. President,
Yes.
you've called for a hearing. The board has called for a hearing.
Correct.
It is now 9:35.
Correct.
There are two people who have signed up to speak. William Hobday, do you want to speak? And since I am being photographed, I just have a tooth issue, so I am not making faces at your camera this evening.
Bill Hobday, 30 Schoolhouse Lane. It is my recollection that when we were discussing this, that the board was going to select the 15 routes, and that was going to be primarily based on the level of complaints from those routes. To allow the service provider to pick the routes, of course he's going to do this based on economic reasons. You don't have to do that. You should pick the routes that would be most easily available for rebid.
We did that on the second 15, Mr. Hobday. We did that on the second 15.
But so you have 8 routes from the first 15 that are now may go right back to Lakewood Bus Company, when if they were more attractive routes than these particular 8, they would probably be picked up. And therefore, wouldn't it be in the financial best interest of this board to select 8 other routes that are more attractive for rebid than the 8 that were selected by Mr. Rottenberg?
Any other questions, Mr.
Is this just for Lakewood right now, or are we? I have other things, but I'll yield.
Well, no, I don't. We're not going to have another public session. So, if you have anything else you want to say under the law, as revised several years ago, anytime we meet, we must have public.
Okay.
You do have.
The other issue that I was going to speak on was I don't know how the contractual obligations are for the school district with school hours and or days. One of the things that I think that the charter schools are doing that has been proving to be an aid to education is longer school day and more school days. Of course, your contracts bind you. I think that there's 280 days of school a year, 180 days school days a year, but it could be a quagmire, but at the same time, it could be one of those particular things where students in a failing district would have an additional amount of education that could possibly help turn this district into a progressive school district.
You should, okay, you should know, if I may, the LEA leadership is here. The board is very interested in discussing longer days, less days off. The board is actually discussing that with the LEA. We would be thrilled if, but of course, in America, you need to have contractual agreements with the unions,
Of course.
at least currently. In addition, there is a grant that we previously announced the board is looking into, the SIG grant, the School Improvement Grant, which would require longer days, would require less days off. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
So we are entertaining that. The board is actively seeking more instruction and more accountability.
Thank you. And the last and final thing is, you voted at the last meeting to go ahead and change that word shall to should, and therefore that was first reading. I was hoping that tonight would be second reading.
We did say at the February 24th meeting would be the second reading.
I know, but were we aware of this meeting?
No,
okay.
we weren't.
Once you, okay.
And it is posted, I've been told, on the website. Is that right, Dr. Deb?
Yes.
And I believe we did send it to the 6 public schools and to all the non-public schools to let them know that the second reading would happen on the 24th. Did that occur? Let me rephrase. Did that occur? Did that somewhere sort of, did that occur?
I,
That was being done through the transportation office?
yes, and
All right.
it will be done first thing tomorrow.
All 6 schools, the principals should have the right to comment by the 24th, and all the non-public schools. The board did say this, and the board, you can correct me, that they should have the right to know about this, so they have the right to comment. Board, we did say this last meeting, right?
Yes, I will make sure that that goes out first thing tomorrow.
Okay, but they are on the website. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Through the chair, can I hear what the superintendent's opinion is, because I didn't hear anything about longer days?
The research that's coming out clearly indicates that the United States has the least number of mandated hours. We're competing against Japan, who has, I think, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day for students. I think we come down to, when you eliminate lunch, prep periods, we come down to something less than 4 hours a day. So it behooves us, I believe, that we do have to expand the day. How we do it, one of the ways we're going to look at is through the SIG grant. And then, of course, it has to go through legislation and everything else.
Okay, I understand. Never heard about it. Thank you.
Great. Roxanne Martin? Roxanne Martin. She is not here. We've called Roxanne Martin. That's the public portion, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair. Mike, when we find out, sorry, about the bond, if there's a time frame to find out.
The company's in Massachusetts. I did place a call anonymously because I didn't want to have any type of, well, I said who I am. I didn't say which district, which bus company. But tomorrow, I'll ask Gus to please call, and you could review the bond. You have the bond. We do have a bond, correct? We have, look at them. Why do you have to get everyone nervous here? There is a bond. You can go through the language in the bond, and if you need assistance, call. But you could find out if there is a procedural issue as to it.
But can we at least start the procedure if there is one?
Well, what I recommended, because we don't want to cause unnecessary hurting to the vendor, what I suggested is that you vote to those 2 options. One is the county hearing to start the process, yes or no. And 2 is to pursue the bond should the procedural requirements of the bond require that you notice. Like, you know, like insurance, you have to notice a certain amount of days, or you procedurally have defaulted. So you would vote to pursue the bond now, provided there would be procedural ramifications if you didn't. If there weren't, why do it?
Okay, sounds good.
What about the vote on the 15th?
That, as we said, would be on the 20th. Well, you could agree now as formal board action to go out for the 15 routes, which have gone out already, but you could formalize what has happened already to the second 15.
Right, so that's what my point was before, that could we just take 8 and replace the other 8 and then just discuss that we're going out for 7? And there's a reason why I think it would be better to do it
Mr.
that way.
Seibel, I don't think we can. We've based on the verbal direction I had a couple of meetings ago, I did start the process. The 15 routes, the second 15 routes are out. They will be submitted and opened on the 24th.
I understand, what I'm trying to say is that on
23rd.
On 8 of them, you should not have had to ask permission from the board. We already gave permission for 15. We didn't specify which 15. And being that 8 weren't picked up, you have the full right to go ahead and bid out another 8 without even asking us. The question tonight is only on the other 7. I just want to clear that up because I think that it may come up later on. That's why I'm just clearing that up.
Okay.
It's a very good point.
So
They don't even have to make a motion on the floor.
The motion, now let us go through this. Mr. Pratt, is there any more discussion?
Yeah.
There is more discussion? No. All right, let's go through this with through the chair. Number 1, should we initiate county proceedings in accordance with the New Jersey statute? A vote of yes means yes. You do need a majority of the board for this vote. which would mean 5. With the understanding, you could always later say, you're gonna stop it with all this stuff, he's gonna get better, which I'm sure he will. But to initiate county proceedings immediately. Is there a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Mr. Seidler, Mr. Silver. Oh, you
We
did?
both did. You can give it to Mr. Tiff.
Okay, Mr. Tiff, thank you. Thank you so much. Now we have a first and a second. Discussion. Okay, let's call it.
Mr. Seidler,
Yes.
Mr. Silver,
Yes.
Mr. Tift,
Yes.
Mr. Zlatkin,
Yes.
Mr. Grunhut.
Yes.
Mr. Ostreicher had to leave at 9. All right, that's that. Second, behave yourself, please. Second would be, where's my little piece of paper? Hold on.
To pursue the bond if no loss.
To pursue the bond regarding the, let me just get this right, regarding, how many routes were picked up already?
7.
Pursue the bond regarding the 7 routes that were picked up, is that what you would say, Gus? Or the 15, what would you say, since you're the bus, Gus?
Well, I thought we were pursuing the bonds in the event that we had issues that were part and parcel to the county hearing.
Well, no, that's not what we said at all. Well, excuse me one second. What was discussed here is that bonds, like insurance, may very well have certain time deadlines. You and Mr. Romberg got into a nice colloquy about what this document means. My concern is that I don't want to be litigating this and spending their money litigating this. That's why you have bonds. You went out for 15, 7 were picked up, 8 were not.
That's correct.
So the board is requiring him to continue with the 8, the 7 that were not picked up, if there's a loss, and if we have to report it within a certain time frame, that would be the vote for now.
Wouldn't you know that now, really? When you just compare the 2 bids, you'd have an answer right to say.
Well, okay. Part of the vote would be if there's a loss, and if there's not a loss, well then perhaps you don't have to do the bond. But
Our understanding, the way Gus put it out the first time, was that if, being that things are on shaky ground, and there is a county hearing forthcoming, he had made it sound like, should we pursue the bond just in case there are issues that are going to come up that may arise, especially since a couple of days ago there was some... If there was...
Mr. Romberg, are you willing, when Gus comes up with a number with Patty tomorrow, for the 7 routes that were taken back, which were picked up, they'll figure out for you, you could all have another meeting upstairs, you'll figure out if there's a difference. If there's a difference, are you willing to assume that difference?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion...
That's what we signed.
We have a paper based on the difference.
I understand, and we have many papers, and therefore they go to Superior Court, and people interpret what those papers mean. People don't always, believe it or not, do what papers they sign say, and then, I'm not saying you,
But I object to what you're saying, because the reason why we signed the paper last time, you said if I sign the paper, you won't go to the bond. That was a clear agreement that we made.
but then I heard
That was my question. If he assumes the difference,
Right.
why are we going to the bond?
Gus, excuse me if I'm misunderstanding something. Didn't you say before that Mr. Rottenberg came into your office about 2 or 3 days ago and told you that if we took 15 more routes, he would stop servicing other routes or these routes immediately instead of waiting to any approvals or any routes to be picked up? It was my understanding, based on the way you explained it at least, that you were pursuing the bond just in case there was any action related to the threats, which you have brought before us before.
Yeah, and first of all, not only I heard the threat, Ms. Bennell heard the threat as well.
Is that true, Ms. Bennell?
Yes.
And secondly, my total interest in the bond is to protect this Board of Education from any financial damages, and that's what I'm concerned about.
So what is your recommendation?
Pursue the bond.
That we find out if there's any threshold, just like you said, any time threshold, and as long as there's not, we will just make sure that the board agrees, should there be a time when we see a loss coming, that we have the approval to pursue the bond.
On the 7 routes?
On the 7 routes or any routes forthcoming.
Or any subsequent routes.
Yes.
Okay, subsequent, yes. Okay.
So are we
for
gonna
the chair.
wait? Are we gonna wait until there's a loss, or are we gonna do it before there's a
Well,
loss?
we won't be able to anticipate as far, unless he,
By tomorrow, they'll be able to figure out, hopefully,
Okay.
this first 7.
Gotcha.
The next 15, they won't be until it's done, right, Mr. Ronberg?
that's correct.
And as far as, if, no disrespect, he signed a paper, Mr. Zlatkin tells me signing the paper means something.
Well, if you wrote the paper and you
No, it
signed
doesn't,
it,
I can write, Mr. Zlatkin.
I would assume that
You asked me to
it
sign.
stands
You don't
something.
wanna ask me to sign.
Again, are we like in La La Land? People sign papers all the time. I'm not saying you do this. I don't know, I have a drawer full of bounce checks. People sign checks and they bounce them. I'm not saying it's you, you know that. But all we're suggesting is that if there is a procedural time frame, then we will have to do something. Unless, Mr. Ronberg, I can't imagine on the first 7 rounds, excuse me, before you subsequent. The first 7 rounds, I don't know busings, that's not part of my requirements. The first 7 rounds, can you figure out tomorrow if there's a loss or not?
Yes, and I believe,
Good. Mr. Rottenberg, you could do that now?
I can do it now.
Okay, but we'll do it shortly, tomorrow. If there is a loss, why, are you agreeing
Yes,
immediately
yes,
to give
yes.
us the money?
You said the way we've made up in the paper, to take it out of the picture.
Through June?
Yeah, that's what we made up.
So what I was understanding was that Gus was recommending that being that we may be going to the county and there won't be any checks coming through June, we should pursue the bond.
Why won't there be checks by the
Well, if the county disqualifies them.
Do you know how long that process is?
yeah, no, and,
No, do you?
Yes,
How long?
it's much more than 3 months.
it is, and that's why we're asking for permission to pursue that.
So why would you want to pursue the bond? You just ask him, Mr. Rottenberg, would you agree to do 22 instead of just 15?
Yes.
Okay, so then we
What's
have,
he agreeing to do now?
he's agreeing to change the number 15 to 22, and that means that he's gonna take out of his paycheck any difference on all 22 rounds.
That covers us for the 2 bids.
And when is he doing that? Immediately or through June?
Through June.
Oh, and what if, and I'm not saying, what if he doesn't?
You'll take it out of my check. That's not
What
up
if
to me.
he, wait a
We're
minute,
taking it out of
It's
his
not up
check.
to me.
did you not hear, you were here this night when there was a Talmudic dispute about what this document means? I heard it, it's on this latest tape.
Yeah, so I heard that dispute. You wanna know what the dispute was about? It
No.
was about what the 884 means, and it was irrelevant to the fact that he was gonna pay the difference. The question was that Gus had misspoke and said that he would pay over 884. Mr. Rottenberg said he meant only up until 884.
So
That
now
was the
the
Talmudic
agreement tonight
dispute.
is on 22 routes, 7 already and 15 more.
Right.
Mr. Rottenberg is gonna pay the difference.
Correct.
Is that right?
If you don't, I'm agreeing that to stop you from going to the bonding company now.
Right.
Well, that could be, is that under duress, coercion, force?
No, it's a deal.
All my proteges here have never been in
It's a deal,
court.
whatever deal means, that's what it is, a plea bargain.
Now, you see, that's,
I don't know.
How come this wasn't a public hearing in the first place when all the information that you're talking about in the back room is coming out right now?
It was here in public before we went out to the back.
Why did you do it in closed
I'm sorry.
session?
The vendor requested, so we just agreed to the request?
22
This
routes.
is a repeat, correct?
22 routes. Mr. Rottenberg is agreeing, if there's a difference, we know 7 by tomorrow morning, we'll know the next 15. He will pay in equal payments from whenever they were signed. Well, March 1st starts the 7, so March, April, May, June. Is that how it works?
Yes.
The next 15 are when?
We, 23rd.
Of February?
Yes.
So why can't they be for March 1st?
Well, if we can get them ready by the board meeting.
Well, why can't you get them ready if they're due February 23rd and we have a meeting February 24th?
But the agenda's already.
No, I'm sure the
We
board.
can make an addendum.
Yeah, so there goes that lame excuse, not yours. So 15 and 7 will be ready for the 24th meeting, right?
Yes.
And then the board members who are here to be fiscally responsible will be able to know by that meeting what the difference is.
That's correct.
And then Mr. Rottenberg's agreeing to pay that difference.
If you
That's
don't
what I'm
go to the
hearing.
bond.
If we don't go to the bond. Well, you already agreed to these.
That's also.
Oh, so it's all if we don't go to the bond
As
company.
we spoke clearly.
All right, so 22, okay.
Okay,
I just say to myself, nothing against Mr. Rottenberg, there are potential pitfalls in this, but again, this is your pleasure.
Michael, wasn't that your recommendation last time?
Yeah, but you know what, I have to say this to you, Mr. Rottenberg, I'm here to help all.
Okay.
But there
Change
seems,
your mind.
there seems to have been events that occurred since the last time. There was something in an office, of this, you put a threat, of that, and
Yeah, I thought that that was the sole purpose of the bond, that if any threats are carried out and we're left hanging,
well, that is,
and
but
then what
this
happens,
is
how are we
really,
protecting the board if suddenly more buses
Well,
stop showing
can
up?
we just put a caveat on Mr. Rottenberg's agreement with these 22 routes, that the restriction on us not going to the bond company deals only with these 22 routes, and should things deteriorate any further, then we still have that option open.
Well, that's for sure.
Okay.
that's for sure.
Through the chair, Mike, I have a question for you. It seems kind of weird that if we have a bond, the reason why we have bus companies put up bonds, just in case they don't pay, is there something that we don't know about the bond? Is there a bond? Is there no bond? Is there
Watch
money?
this, is there a bond?
Yes, there is.
Has it been paid for?
Yes, it has.
There's a bond.
I think that we should pursue to go after the bond instead of having him make an agreement to pay. If, you know, like we said, people sign things every day. If they don't pay, they renege on it.
we have his check.
The board.
It's a garnishment over
We have
the
my
check.
check.
We pay him.
Yeah.
And we garnish it over the check. We don't need him to write out a
We don't need
check.
him.
To write out any check, we just take it straight off of his check that we give
Take
him.
from top.
Right. The only question is that should he carry out on the threat that he's going to stop all busing,
Gotcha.
then there won't be any charges.
I
That-
never made that threat. The threat was that I won't do the other 8 because they don't tie in.
I understand. Thank you.
Can we have a roll call?
Is there any other recommendations, like for the new 7 or 15 or anybody, anything, could we adjourn?
No shows he doesn't.
Through the chair, can I get somebody's attention?
Yes.
Is there any other recommendations that we have to vote on?
Did we vote on the county already?
Yes.
we did.
Now we have to
Okay,
vote on
now
the
what would you like your second motion to be, but if you could say it in English?
To replace the old 8 with another 8 and to add on an additional 7 for a total of 22.
The old 8 with a new 8 plus another 15.
No, no, 7.
Oh, no,
Total
that's-
22.
Total 20.
It's just playing different than we do.
I don't know, I can't follow it.
That's not.
There's two bids. Out of 2 bids, there were potentially 30 routes that were going to be bid. Instead of 30 routes, it looks like we're going to wind up awarding 22 out of the 2 bids.
Are you agreeing for us to award 22 routes?
I think, yeah, that's
Well, no, yes or no, sir?
Yes, I'm just
Okay.
confused with that one route with this terrace, whatever it's called.
Well, that one you told us at a public hearing, I thought that the school,
Right, I don't know if that's
Biederman,
in the
some
22 or
name.
not the 22, but go ahead.
okay,
That's
22 routes, you are saying we can, I'm not saying we need your permission even, but we can go elsewhere with it, is that what you're saying?
That's me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so now what is Mr. Seidler saying? I'm sorry, we were,
No, I'm just making the motion, if you need one, that we should do them.
the 22, and we shouldn't pursue the bond?
Why are we pursuing the bond? If we should pursue the bond only if he doesn't change this letter that he wrote to 22.
Tomorrow, Patty and Bill, sorry, Bill, you're in Bridgewater now. Patty and Gus, figure out the first 7. Have him sign, none of this lawyer language. 7 routes, the difference is he's paying in equal payments from March 1st to June. Are you agreeing to that?
Yes.
The next 8, when you get them in February 24th, you'll stay late as 15. Next 15, you will do the same thing.
Yes, we will.
He will sign that document before we get here February 24th.
That's correct, Mr. Rottenberg, right?
Yes, but it's not that easy to do by tomorrow morning, you have to take them out in days.
Right, it's not for the whole year, it's just from March 1st through
Right,
June.
right, yeah, they have to go per rate.
Yeah, you-
March is off half
Right,
a month,
yes,
and
right.
I think April's off half, April's
The
only
amount
half a
of,
month, and June's half
what,
a month.
just say it.
It's done.
It's,
Okay,
And then if you three come to an agreement, you'll have it presented to me that evening.
Yes.
Will please be here February 24th. If the board and I are satisfied, great. If not, then you can vote on a bond that evening, okay? Does that satisfy everyone?
Well, through the chair, just a related question, but slightly off topic. For Patty and for Gus, in the addendum to the bus policies that we had, is there something that says there, I believe I read it, that when a bus company comes a half hour late or more, that you're supposed to deduct $50 from the payment towards that route?
Before she responds to that, I have it here, but can I first just get this motion done?
Oh.
Which is, I'm gonna get you here, which is just clearly the 7 difference and the 15 difference, 22. You're gonna have that all work, the 7 tomorrow, Mr. Romberg, you're gonna come in tomorrow, right? Is that yes?
That's it.
The next 15, by February 24th, before our board meeting, which is advertised for 8 p.m. here as of now. So that is, if you guys come to an agreement, it will be equal installments, prorated, all that. If that's done, if not, we'll go after the bond. That is the motion, Mr. Seidler?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Seidler.
Yes.
Mr. Silver.
Yes.
Mr. Tift.
Yes.
Mr. Zlatin.
Yes.
Mr. Grunhut.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the county we did, the bond, the difference in payment we did, which covers, if that's not done, the bond. And now a question was asked. Sorry, I'm having a major Tuesday here. Okay, in our addendum, page 7, if, number 1, a matter of fact, I sent this all to you.
I know, that's what I thought I saw.
You're good. If the contractor does not have enough spare vehicles,
No.
well, that may apply. I'm getting there. In the event that he uses video, no, that doesn't apply. And I put a star here for some reason, look out there, here's 52. Here, page 7, paragraph 6, it's what I sent you. And all of you, no one gets special treatment.
Thank you so much for sending it.
You're welcome. A reliable transportation system is important to meet the educational requirements of the students and the school district. To this end, students must be brought to school in the morning in a timely and consistent manner, and students must be picked up at school in the afternoon in a timely manner. If a bus arrives later than 5 minutes before the scheduled school time, or is not in its designated area at least 10 minutes before the scheduled end time, for more than 10 days in the school year in the morning and or afternoon, the school district reserves the right to deduct $50 per bus for each late arrival at school from the monthly billing retroactive to the first lateness. Well, there it is.
Correct, so my question is, have we been doing that?
Not for late arrivals or departures, no, because we haven't had anything. We only deducted for no-shows.
Okay.
Is there any reason for that?
Well, if I could just answer, again, I just started on the 1st. I will set up a method that we can keep track of that, and unfortunately, I don't know how we can document what happened prior to my arrival. Patty, that was not Patty's charge to deal with that. That was part of Bill's responsibility. So I will set up a method that we keep a chart in which we will know if a
Set it up, and by February 24th, tell us how you set it up.
Okay.
For the chair, we have 144 pages. Why don't you just look at
It
those?
says retroactive in the addendum.
Okay, well then why not, hold it, Mr. Seidler, touche. It's
You want me to
there.
do it?
No, well, you seem to do a lot, but no, you have paid people. So, you go off to Washington, and what we're going to do here, or Mount Sinai, what we're going to do here is you have all the documentation, try to put it together for the February 24th meeting, if you can, because it does say retroactive. Is there anything else, Mr. Nagbo, you want to say to us?
No.
Is there any other motions that in this hearing are going to be made?
To adjourn.
Well, wait,
Still.
hold it.
Are we done?
We're finished now with the hearing.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to add anything? We've heard that.
I got a question. Do we need to make a motion in order to make that happen with the deduction of $50 for the late?
No, because it's in the addendum that was written several years ago.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're ending the hearing. Hearing over. I did want to have a few moments with the board. We do have our insurance. Remember, you wanted the insurance man.
Yes.
So there is a motion to go into closed session by
Me.
Mr. Zlatkin. Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Yeah.
The board will not be coming out this evening taking any further action, so you need not stick around. But we are going into closed session to have discussions with our insurance people and other issues that are exceptions to the Sunshine Law.